Hello and good morning. Welcome to today's webinar covering role-based provisioning, best practices for success. Thank you all for joining us. Before we begin, just a quick note that everyone will be muted during the session. And if you have a question, please enter it into the questions toolbar and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible at the end of the session. Additionally, we'll be sending a recording to everyone following this webinar. With that, let's get started. My name is Robert Young. I am a principal technical consultant for core security at Help Systems. I have been a technical consultant for over 15 years. I specialize in the identity and access management suite, specifically the Access Assurance Suite by Core Security. What is role-based access? So we're talking about role-based access today. A role is a collection of access permissions. A permission is a user's ability to access a system object somewhere on the network. This could be having the permission to log into an application, having the permission to read a folder on the network, having the permission to access a server or a printer. Basically, the ability to read, write, modify, delete, or access an object on the network. We group these permissions into logical collections to form roles. Today, we will focus on how these roles are formed and why they are important in managing the access and security in your organization. According to Cybersecurity Insider's 2021 IAM report, 60% of organizations considered role-based access a top priority for identity and access management. But out of all of those respondents, only 48% of those were not very confident in their ability to design roles. So while they believed that they were important, they did not have the skills or the know-how to design them in a way that was efficient. Learning the tools and processes to effectively design well-established roles would go a long way in enhancing an organization's IAM capabilities. Why is role-based access important? Using role-based access control provides an organization with a way to safely grant and restrict access in an organized and structured way that will grant users the access they need and only the access that they need. One of the advantages of using role-based access is establishing access policies. Access privileges are grouped into roles in an organized, intentional, and methodical way. These roles are reviewed and accepted before being assigned to the user. We will discuss how to build these roles in more detail later in this presentation. Using role-based access control also aligns with the CIA Triad security model, and you may be familiar with that. The CIA Triad security model focuses on confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which are all very important in the security of an organization. Confidentiality implies that only authorized users and processes should be able to access or modify that data. Roles improve confidentiality by intentionally giving users only the access they need. For example, a user has access to their own network file share, but does not have access to another user's file share. Integrity ensures that the data is maintained in the correct state and that the data will not be improperly modified or deleted, either intentionally or accidentally. Roles can separate the user's access by function and need, and should be based on the idea of least privilege. They should only be given access to what they need to do their job and nothing more. For example, a user is given permission to use an application, but they are not given the access to change the configuration of the application or access to directly modify the data in the database. Availability is about ensuring that authorized users have access to the data and applications they need when they need it. Role-based provisioning can be combined with automated onboarding to ensure that a user has access to all of the applications and permissions they need on day one, so they're not wasting time or not being able to access what they need to do on that first day when they get started. Automated offboarding can quickly remove all of a user's access on their termination date, which is very important to make sure that that access is restricted because they no longer need it. Roles play an integral part in the identity and access management. Role-based access control enhances the onboarding, offboarding, changes ad hoc request, and enhances the certification and access review options. So how do we build roles? Roles can be created in different ways. For example, job title, job location, department, application, employee type. For new hires or onboarding, job title, job location, employee type, and department. These are all common ways that we can determine from, say, HR data, what the new user should get automatically. Job title would be, for example, teller, branch manager, director, engineer. Location can be, it's more of a geographic location. It could be city like Atlanta. It could be a region like East Coast or EMEA or the United States. Or it could be just a location such as a bank branch. For ad hoc requests, such as a current user that just needs access to a new application, building roles based off of application are a common way to organize those roles. So for instance, you might have a printer role that would assign, so if you have 20 different printers, you could have a role that might need several different accesses to obtain that printer, or an Active Directory group that that provides a function but has several different Active Directory groups that are required. Those could be grouped into one easily identifiable role that can be selected or requested for a user versus having to understand the low-level details within each one of the applications. These are only examples, and roles can be built in any way that makes sense for the organization. If job location is not a standard field in the human resources data, then location would not be a good data point to use to build roles. Job title and employee type are two of the most common data points that I've used working with different organizations to start building those roles. So where would we start? If different organizations are in different levels of where they are in grouping the accesses that users need, building and maintaining those roles is a perpetual process that will be reviewed and updated on a continuing basis. This could result in hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of roles over time, depending on the size and the complexity of the organization. The most important step in the process is to be accurate. So start simple. Start with what you know. If It's just as simple as having a role for all employees, and you know they need a basic network access and basic email, then that would be a good role to start with. If every employee is provisioned an AD account and an email, start with that. If it's just an Active Directory account with no group memberships, that's fine. That's at least the user would have that Active Directory account to start with, for example, in onboarding. The next step is to gather the data required to build a comprehensive set of roles. This is where the complexity may come in, and it doesn't have to be complex. It can be, depending on that structure. This can be done in multiple ways. There's a bottom-up approach or a top-down approach. To review the data, the bottom-up approach is to analyze the data that is already assigned to users in that organization. You determine similar access among groups such as job title, department, and location. For example, similar access assigned to users in the marketing department would be grouped into a marketing role. Similar access assigned to users with the job title of engineer would be grouped into an engineering role. The top-down approach involves reaching out to the experts in the organization to determine what access each group should get. An expert in the marketing department could provide a list of common accesses that would be used to create the marketing role. An expert in the IT department could provide a list of common accesses for the IT department, as well as similar accesses for all employees and or other groups. IT is going to have a lot of experience in what is being provisioned to whom. The top-down approach is an important part of building and maintaining the roles. The leaders and experts in the organization should play a role ensuring that the users have only the access that they need to do their job. They will be an important part of the role review and management process. So over time, these roles will be reviewed. You might have legacy systems, you might have new applications that need to be added, and they will play an important part in maintaining the accuracy of those roles. But the top-down approach relies on the experts' best guess as what should be included in each role. The bottom-up approach, where you're looking at the data that you already have, provides a realistic view of which accesses are currently assigned. It also involves a large amount of data to review. In large organizations, this is very time-consuming and tedious. Luckily, Health Systems has a product called Role Designer that can do that work for you. The way Role Designer works is you import all of your data. It offers a simple, accurate, and automated solution to building the roles. It takes the separate users and all of their accesses based off of what you import. So you may import all of your Active Directory users and the groups that they are assigned to. You may import several different other targets, as many targets as you have access to, and it can take this data and manipulate it into an easy to read format. It displays them in a grid format, making it easy to see and find patterns of similar accesses that could be used in a role. Role Designer would also show users in a common grouping that have outlier accesses or missing accesses. For example, if you look at the marketing department, all of the users have many of the same accesses, but one or two users may have extra and access that no one else in the department needs. Does that mean that those should be removed from the user, or maybe those accesses should be added to all of the users? And that's the type of data that it gives you to help you make those decisions. Role Designer also automatically generates a list of recommended roles based on the patterns it finds in that data. An administrator could choose one of the recommended roles and or create their own roles. The seamless And it's also the seamless integration with Core Access Assurance Suite makes managing the new and existing roles a much easier experience than trying to find the same data through spreadsheets and manual processes. Here we have a simple example of two different types of roles based off of employee type. So if we start simple, here is all employees would get the employee role. All non-employees, such as contractors and vendors, would get the non-employee role. The access in the employee role could be used in an onboarding process to make sure the user had at least an Active Directory account, an email account, and VPN access on the user's first day. And this is going to change from organization to organization. You know what, you would have to find out what is used in your organization. The IT department is very helpful in that regard to know who has access to everything. Non-employees would just get an Active Directory account and would not get an email in this example. Then you can go into a more complex role situation. This is a user would get 4 different roles based off of their employee type, job title, location, and department. So let's say, for example, this is an onboarding process. We see from the HR data that the user is an employee, so they would be assigned an employee role, which would give them Active Directory, an O365 email license, and possibly access to some HR system, like ADP. This user is also identified as a teller, as a job title. So we would be able to tell that this user as a teller, because all tellers get the teller system, just basic access, ATM system, a payment system. And these are just made up examples for different types of accesses. This user is also located at an example Main Street branch. So they would get access, everyone at the Main Street branch gets access to a printer, a key fob to get into the door, and possibly a bank vault access. And then we also have the department. So they are part of the banking services, which is just a made up department. So everyone that is in banking services gets access to, say, a CRM system, a distribution list for the banking services department, and possibly other common tools that everyone in that department would get. So you can see that roles can be as simple as just an employee type, or can be expanded into more complex, detailed roles that really define what the user should end up getting once they are fully provisioned with all of the access that they need to do their job. The ultimate goal would be on day one, the user has everything that they need. And that's a process that would grow. So you add new applications from time to time. You remove applications. So you have legacy applications that would need to be removed. There are also certification and auditing requirements that, if set up correctly, the roles could be used within that certification process to ensure that everyone has not only the correct role, but that they have a role at all, and you can track the extra accesses that the user has out of their normal job function. So are there any questions at this point? Roles are in my experience, are a unique project in that it's never the same in any two places. There are a lot of similarities. It doesn't have to be difficult. And when it is fully provisioned, when you have it implemented, the roles make the identity and access management functions of provisioning and deprovisioning much easier. Without the roles, you have mistakes that happen from time to time. Someone may forget to give someone a certain application, or may give someone the incorrect access, maybe too much access. The roles take that out of the equation by standardizing what everyone gets. So I have one question. How are manually provisioned applications handled in role-based access? This is in my specific experience with Access Assurance Suite, the applications and accesses that cannot be automatically provisioned through that suite would create a ticket or send a notification to a team that would manually provision that access. So for instance, we may be able to go in and automatically add all of the Active Directory groups that are part of the role, but you may have another application that is not connected in any way. So we would just create for example, a ServiceNow ticket or a notification that would be sent to the correct person, and then that person would be responsible for going out and manually provisioning that. But they would also get the information about what type of access that user should get, and possibly usernames and how it should be created. So let's see, what other questions do we have? Do you have any tips on the best way to start implementing roles in my organization? Like I said before, it's important to start simple. Start with a small amount of roles. You can start with the basic employment role, or for employees, non-employees. So what accesses do everyone in the organization get? And then build on it from there. After you get the basic done, move on to, say, one department. Find out one department, work with the leaders in that department, find out what accesses everyone has, and create that role and add that one role into the provisioning process. Then maybe if you're doing job title instead, you start with one job title. Find out what are the common accesses. You find the leaders that manage those types of job titles. Maybe there's the same job title across different parts of the company. You would find out all of those accesses and make sure that they're implemented all the same. And then after a while, you'll get more and more roles added in, and you'll get that process going. And before you know it, you'll end up with quite a set of roles to use. Can roles contain more than one application? Yes. Roles can either be application based, such as if I want for example, Salesforce. Maybe I need just the Salesforce access and it can go out and provision just that Salesforce access. Or Active Directory, which is the common one. You would have different roles in Active Directory to perform different functions, but you may have certain applications that also need Active Directory groups, or for example, with the job titles or departments that we showed before, there, you may have Active Directory, O365, or you may have different teller systems or different applications that you need. That role would be a combination of all of those, and they would go out and provision each and every one of those all together, but it's all collected into one grouping, for example, called teller. So you have a role for teller that defines this is what a teller needs. You may have a different one for senior teller that has a little bit different access. And then obviously branch manager would have additional accesses on top of what the teller would have. And it contains that, and it limits, not only grants the users what they need, but restricts them from the things that they don't need. And that's really the more important part of it. If we already have roles defined, can those be imported into the Access Assurance Suite? Yes, different options for that has come up before. You can use Role Designer which is a great tool to manage those roles. Sometimes maybe you already have a whole list of roles and you've gone through this process of determining what each grouping is, all the job titles or departments, and they're listed somewhere in a spreadsheet. We can use that spreadsheet and import that into the Access Assurance Suite to be able to create those roles for you automatically. This would require a little bit of scripting. It's not an automated process that's out there, because as you can imagine, the different spreadsheets are going to be different columns, different data. So it's a custom process, but the professional services department could complete this task for you if you already have that. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for your time today. We'd love to hear from you, your comments, or if you have any questions. And as always, as you see on the screen, you can reach out to us at coresecurity.com or send an email to info@helpsystems.com. We'd be glad to talk more to you.